Welcome to our morning devotions. And today we're looking at Psalm 18, and I'm going to take several weeks to go through this psalm. It's a fairly long psalm, 50 verses and all, so we'll take a number of weeks. I'm not sure exactly how many, but we'll work our way through it together bit by bit. It's a psalm which comes after David experienced God's deliverance after a long time of being oppressed and chased by Saul. So it's a psalm of thanksgiving after the Lord's deliverance. It's entitled in my Bible, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress." It's a psalm about how we can have confidence and security in the Lord. So let's begin to work our way through it, beginning in verse 1. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge. My shield and the horn of my salvation. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. There's so much about this which should give us confidence in days of trial. He says in verse 1 that the Lord is his strength. That's why he loves him, because the Lord is all that he needs. And so when he is weak, the Lord is strong. The Lord is the one who's enabled to carry him through. He needs to rely on the Lord's strength, not his own. He says in verse 2 that the Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. He speaks of God again as his rock in whom he takes refuge. He speaks of him as his shield, the horn of salvation, his stronghold. So there's just a permanence about God. There's just security with God. And you know, we live in a world where we can be so up and down and things can change so quickly. Then we live in a world where there's little security. But David knows that the Lord is the one who's secure. He's not like the sand which shifts and moves. He's like a rock who is firm and remains there. He's a fortress. He's the one who delivers his people. He's the one who can be relied on. He is a stronghold. He's the one that his people run to. And do you not get that sense when you pray, if you know the Lord? You just get that sense when you pray to him that you're just surrounded by his arms. You're in a safe place because you're in his presence. He says in verse 3, I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I'm saved from my enemies. He is just thrilled at the Lord's deliverance. You know, we need to be a people who experience that, who know the Lord's deliverance. That deliverance, first of all, from sin. It should always be our song of praise that he's rescued us from our sin. I hope you know that. I hope you experience that in your life. I hope it's a note of praise in your life. Oh, never lose sight of that, the wonder of grace, of God reaching out to the undeserving of us. But there's a great picture here in verses 4 and 5 of just how the Lord rescues here. There's a great picture just how the Lord lifts his people up. He says, the cords of death encompass me. The torrents of destruction assail me. The cords of Sheol, that's the place of death, entangle me. The snares of death confronted me. That just reminds me of some of the words that Jonas shared after the Lord had brought the great fish to rescue him as he was drowning in the sea. And just a sense of being drowned, of being entangled. Sin does that, death does that. Sin gets into every area of our lives, and along with sin there comes the curse of death. And we are a people who get dragged down not just to death that's physical, but would be dragged down to eternal death and hell itself. Those cords just pulling us down. That's the situation that we're in because of sin. That's the danger that we're in. But look what he says in verse 6, in my distress I called upon the Lord. To my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. And just how the Lord hears the prayers of those who are suffering and those who have no hope in themselves. It speaks about the temple, how the Lord has heard from his temple. And now, that would have been, there was no temple in Jerusalem at this time. That had not been built yet. It wasn't David who would have built it, but his son Solomon. But the temple from which the Lord hears is heaven itself. The Lord hears the cries of his people. He sees when we're struggling. He sees when we're being cast down. He sees and he comes and he rescues. I hope you know this, Lord. I hope you have confidence in this, Lord. And if you don't have confidence, just look at these next verses, what it says about the Lord from verse 7 to 15. It says, "Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him. Thick clouds dark with water. Out of the brightness before him, hailstones and coals of fire broke through his clouds. The Lord also thundered in the heavens. The Most High uttered his voice, the hailstones and the coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of your breath of your nostrils." Here the Lord is pictured as a mighty warrior, the great God who controls nature, because he is the creator God. He's a God who comes with fire. He's a God who comes with arrows. He's a God who comes with cherubs, these angels. Were not the cute little cherub that you see seen. These were awesome creatures that people fell down almost as dead before. They were so awesome. The picture here is of God of majesty and glory who comes to fight for his people. The God who controls the world. The God who made this world. The God who speaks and the world will fall apart. This is the God who thunders and comes to rescue his people. So the key thing is knowing is the Lord on our side? The Lord will be on our side when we're on his side. The side of righteousness, the side of Christ, the side of salvation. Be aware of this. This great and awesome God. He's either a God who will condemn you in your sin because you've never received the salvation of Christ, or he's a God who will fight for you. Not because you deserve it, but because you're trusting in Jesus, his Son. May this God give us the grace to trust him and indeed to be those who are rescued by him. Amen.